The end of Disney may be the most well-known treasure island fan game, and for good reason. It was released by Mara all the way back in 2016. Oh yeah, here's a reminder that 2016 was almost a decade ago. The end of Disney had two versions and is maybe one of the most remade FNATI games of all time. Now we'll go into those fan remakes later, but for now let's focus on the original games Mara made with a little history on the side. So the end of Disney was originally supposed to be a reboot of Nightmare Before Disney. This is evident due to the fact that in the first version, we have Nightmare characters, while in the second version there's Hellbound characters, but more on that later. While the specific release date is lost, somewhere around mid-2016 the demo for version 1 was released. The best way I can describe version 1 without going into too many details is, well, imagine trying to look like the edgiest kid in school, but due to the fact that everything you do is so over the top, nobody takes you seriously. That's version 1 for you. So version 1 was the first version of the end of Disney, and it was weird. Firstly, the environment and atmosphere are done pretty well. Now yes, the graphics aren't great, especially the character models, but the ambience may be one of the best ambiences I have ever heard of all time. The general character designs do look pretty cheesy, but if I'm being honest, the ones that looked more abandoned I think look better than the ones where they just said, I don't know, just throw a few spikes at them and call it a day. And to completely ruin the ambience, you got probably one of the worst phone calls I have ever heard.
Like, are you completely retarded? I told you not to go there alone again. You went there anyways.
The AI is also pretty broken. The PNGs can overlap, which would be okay if it was just in the cameras, but they can also overlap in the office, which can become a big problem because you can't see everyone who is in your room. Hortensia is also a bit of a pain to deal with. The way you deal with her is by looking at her in the storage room so she stays in there, but there's no indication of this, not even in the phone call. Now, in IT, you do get a little tip that tells you to hide under the desk if you hear footsteps, but the footsteps are so quiet and they play for less than 2 seconds, so they might as well not even exist. The rest of the mechanics just consist of your average shutting off the cameras and using your flashlight. In fact, this version has the same flashlight battery icon from MBDV1. Also, Oswald is a menace. Not only is he extremely hard to see, but sometimes he just kills instantly and gives you 0 time to react. There were also only 2 nights for this demo, and this is a small side point I want to make. Whenever the end of Disney is brought up, why do people like to talk about this one more than version 2? Well, if I had to guess, it's probably just a mix of wanting to see the unfinished finished, and the fact that this version has a completely different vibe. But, like I said, I want to address these said remakes later. So after version 1, Mara put this project to the side, and after a while eventually cancelled it due to a lack of motivation. However, due to the fact that people were requesting for him to finish the game, he would bring it back a few months later. I can understand why he didn't want to finish it because at this point, Mara made almost 15 versions of FNATI games, but he decided that he would finish the end of Disney as one last hurrah. Yeah sure buddy, keep telling yourself that. So with that out of the way, what does V2 have going for it? Well, firstly, the character designs are now Hellbound instead of Nightmares, and look pretty decent honestly. Just in general, the environment is done a lot better, though I gotta say version 1's ambience was a lot better. I often get version 2's ambience confused with the character sound effects, which trip me up a bunch, especially in the later nights. The mechanics are also a lot more set back. The replacement for shutting off the cameras is these 2 buttons, which you use to shock whoever tries to enter the room. Whenever Donald and Daisy come into your room, you hide under their desk. Donald disables buttons while Daisy disables the cameras for however long they are in your room. And this can be incredibly frustrating with how unbalanced the AI is. And here's the meat and potatoes of what makes this game unique. In the camera, there are 4 generators, and they are similar to the music box in FNAF 2. You just have to charge them up to 100% and move on to the next. You have to have them all fully charged up by 6 AM, and if you don't, you die. Oh yeah, as a side note, somewhere to let the show begin, a dev key was left in. Pressing X will skip the night, though it was important to note that trying to cheat on night 5 will not allow you to get to start and access the extras, which is fair enough. Also, there are no longer any phone calls, and they have been replaced with text which you get at the start of each night. I honestly think that might have been for the better because, well...
Are you completely retarded?
Hey, Jake. I heard you got a job back on that island.
Night 3 also has the Pirate Cavern section where you have discovered a 3rd floor of the caverns. We confirm it is this, grab a butcher knife, and literally throw it straight into Undying. It goes without saying Undying doesn't like this and he does become a threat after this. What I find weird is that in the text that follows it says that you have to figure out how to defend yourself from him, but he just goes away of pressing the buttons like any other character. Also, Night 5, which is painstakingly difficult, I should mention. This is due to Donald and Daisy, like I mentioned earlier, which can sometimes get involved at absolute worst times. At the end of the night, there is a scene where Mick grabs you by the neck and tries to choke you, and then you have a segment where you get to spam space for a whole minute without stopping. This is probably the most stressful part of this entire game, since you have to spam space so incredibly fast, and if you die, you have to go back to the start of the night.
I'm just tired. Oh, I died? Did I die during Night 5? Did I die? Is this game over? Are you kidding me? Don't throw that at the end of a very hard night!
And even when you win, there was just a short cutscene and the game just ends. Can I say I like the credits theme go? But as a plus, beating the game unlocks extras, we get a look at the characters, as well as the jump scares and early designs, as well as there being a description for the history of the end of Disney version 1. Except not really, because it's halfway cut off and we're never going to see what its voice says. Also, the most recent version of this game no longer has this menu. So if I had to guess, I suppose Mario himself forgot what this was supposed to say. So, in conclusion, the NZ version 2 is one of the better FNATI games from 2016, though I do think it is a bit overrated. I don't know, the overwhelming AI, repetitive gameplay, and the unsatisfying ending kinda leave a bad taste in my mouth. But what if I told you that's not the end of this story? So in July 2017, Mario did a stream where he patched up some bugs at the end of Disney, and added a custom night. Except he didn't. Like, the bugs were fixed, but the custom night does not exist anywhere. Even when Mario was asked about it, he could have sworn it was added. If I had to guess, maybe he put it together, but the button for it just never appeared, or just never made it in at all? I don't know. There was also supposed to be a DLC that had you explore the third floor of the Pirate Caverns, but this was also never finished. And it was also a cancelled remake that Mario was supposed to actually make. In the Lost Ones Treasure Island Remastered 2.0 demo, there are rare scenes that contain images of Hellbound, Oswald, and P&M. Apparently Mario wanted to remake the end of Disney to tie it in with the new TLO lore, but this never happened. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day, though I don't think Mario is really interested anymore. He's a busy guy and I'm sure he has better things going on. So now I guess it's important that I mention the unofficial side of remakes, especially since this may be behind both Nightmare Before Disney and the original FNATI in terms of how many times this game has been remade, which is a lot. Only two of them I actually feel like talking about though. The first one is the end of Disney original recalled, not to be confused with original revamp. This is just a simple remake at the end of Disney version 1, it lacks some polish and there's only one night currently, but it still looks pretty promising, as of just checking it out. The other one I want to talk about is the Lost Ones The End of Disney. This is one I eventually want to talk about its own individual video, but from what we are currently seeing, it's an incredibly polished and mixed remix thingy of version 1 and version 2 combined. This may honestly be up there with FNATI 6.5 and The Lost Ones Treasure Island, two other FNATI games I'm looking forward to. This game has also been in development for a while, so it's nice to see it finally coming all together. Psst, Willie, if you're watching this, please give me a beta and I'll rank your game 10 out of 10, okay? Thanks.